Deep inside the human body, in our largest artery, surgeons face a critical choice every single day. We're talking about a debate over mere millimeters, pitting two completely different engineering philosophies against each other, and the stakes couldn't be higher. Let's dive into this incredible surgical standoff. So what you're looking at here is a 3D scan of something called an endograft. It is truly a modern medical marvel. It's an internal stent, and its job is to fix a really dangerous bulge in the aorta. But its success, its ability to save a life, hinges on how it's anchored to the artery wall. And that one decision is right at the heart of our explainer today. Okay, so before we can really jump into the debate itself, we first need to understand the problem. Why was this incredible device even invented? Well, it's all about preventing a catastrophic internal rupture. The condition is called an abdominal aortic aneurysm, or just AAA for short. The best way to think about it is like a weak spot in a tire wall, you know? Over time, the constant pressure of your blood flow causes the aorta, this super important artery, to bulge out. And if that bulge bursts, well, the results can be absolutely devastating. For a long time, the only way to fix this was with major open surgery. But now, surgeons have an amazing alternative called endovascular aneurysm repair, or EVAR. They can actually guide a collapsed stent up through the arteries and then deploy it right inside the aneurysm. It's like relining a weakened pipe from the inside, taking all that dangerous pressure off the wall. Now, this device has to do two crucial jobs. First up is fixation. That's the anchor. It uses things like hooks or just pure outward force to grip the artery walls so it doesn't slip. And then there's sealing. That's the barrier. It has to create a perfectly tight seal to stop blood from leaking back into that aneurysm. They're related, for sure, but they are two distinct jobs. And it's that first one, the anchoring, where the debate really begins. And this brings us right to this central conflict, the big question. Where exactly do you place that all-important anchor? The answer to that question basically splits the surgical world into two different camps. On one side, you have suprarenal fixation. This means anchoring the device above the arteries that go to the kidneys. This approach often uses an active grip with tiny hooks or barbs that dig into healthier tissue. On the other side, you have infrarenal fixation. This means anchoring below the kidney arteries, relying more on a really tight, high-pressure fit to create a powerful grip. So here's a great look at the suprarenal philosophy in action. See that bare metal stent at the top? It's got these little sharp hooks. They're designed to get a really powerful, active grip on the aorta above the kidneys to make absolutely sure that device isn't going anywhere. But now, look at the infrarenal device. It's totally different, right? It doesn't have that crown of bare metal hooks. Instead, its whole philosophy is about creating tremendous outward radial force, basically pressing really hard against the artery wall to create that tight seal in this small space just underneath the kidneys. So you've got two very different solutions to the very same problem. Naturally, this huge design difference brings up a really important question. I mean, what is the long-term effects of putting a metal cage right across the arteries that feed your kidneys? And this is really the million-dollar question, isn't it? Our renal arteries are absolutely vital. Is the benefit of getting what might be a stronger anchor worth any potential risk to the body's entire filtration system? The case for Herm seems pretty compelling at first. There was one major study looking at thousands of patients that found that suprarenal grafts were associated with a 12-fold increase in the odds of renal complications. I mean, that's a huge number, and you can't just ignore it. But it's not that simple. Other really large meta-analyses, which are studies that combine all the data from lots of other studies, they came to a completely different conclusion. They looked at the data and found no statistically significant difference in long-term kidney function, or blockages, or even the need for dialysis between the two methods. So let's get a closer look. The arrows here are pointing right at those metal struts from a suprarenal stent. And you can see they're positioned right over the openings to the renal arteries. The entire debate comes down to this. Does this metal scaffolding have any real impact on that critical blood flow over years and over millions and millions of heartbeats? All right, so with the evidence on kidney function being, well, pretty inconclusive, the debate shifts to another critical area, long-term durability. Which one of these designs is more likely to stand the test of time? Because let's be honest, a temporary fix isn't a real solution. What patients and doctors want to know is which anchor is going to provide the most durable, long-lasting repair for a lifetime. So when we talk about failure, there are three main things to worry about. First is device migration. That's when the whole thing slips from where it's supposed to be. Then there's a type IA endoleak, which is a nasty little leak right at the top anchor point. And finally, there's aortic neck enlargement, where the artery itself actually stretches over time, causing that perfect seal to fail. And here again, the evidence is pretty conflicted. One school of thought, backed by some solid research, suggests that the constant outward force from those active suprarenal hooks might actually cause the aorta to slowly dilate or enlarge over the years. And that could potentially compromise the entire repair.
But then again, other research suggests that these changes have way more to do with the patient's individual anatomy and just the natural progression of their disease, and not so much the device itself. From this point of view, the type of anchor you use isn't really the main reason for long-term failure.
So let's just take a step back for a second. We have a debate with no clear winner on kidney function and no clear winner on long-term stability. What does that actually mean for patients and for the surgeons making these decisions? It means the answer isn't a simple one-size-fits-all. In fact, after sifting through all the available evidence, the expert consensus is pretty clear, and it says this: there is just no strong evidence available to show that one type of fixation is definitively better than the other, across the board.
So the verdict is that the best choice is actually an individual one. It all comes down to the surgeon carefully analyzing a patient's unique anatomy, following the device's specific instructions for use or IFU, and then committing to super meticulous planning and, this is key, lifelong follow-up. Success isn't about picking a side in this debate. It's about tailoring the technology to the individual person. And that leaves us with one final thought to chew on. As these devices get even more advanced, with new materials and smarter designs, will one of these philosophies finally prove to be the winner? Or is the ultimate lesson here that when it comes to repairing the human body's most critical pipeline, the future will always and should always be a custom fit?